Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Rigo Villa. I'm one of the community managers on the Cisco Learning Network, and I'll be your host today. In this session, we are going to be covering smarter alerts, better reports, secure network analytics updates with our speaker and presenter, Eric Rennie. But before we get started, I wanted to share a couple of quick housekeeping notes. First, I want to let our attendees know that this session is being recorded and you'll be able to access the on-demand replay at any time at the conclusion of this live event. Next, I just want to take a moment to address the Q&A and poll questions. We will be using Slido for any and all questions during the live event, so please feel free to submit them directly in Slido, and one of our amazing panelists will be ready to assist. We are also going to be using Slido to launch a poll question in the presentation as well, so please be on the lookout for that. And then to make sure you're ready to engage with the poll and to submit any questions, you can go ahead and access the Slido feature directly on your WebEx screen, or you can also do so directly through our live streams page. We are also going to be launching a Slido survey at the end of the live stream, and we would really appreciate it if you can just lend us a minute of your time to fill it out. Your feedback is very valuable to us, and we always look forward to reading your comments. All right, so without any further delay, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, technical marketing engineer, Eric Rennie, who is going to be driving our session for today. So, Eric, how are you? You ready to dive in?
Ready to go, ready to go? Yep,
All right, so
let's
please
go.
feel free to take it away.
Yep, thank you very much. So yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you're listening to this on replay. Um, as Rigo said, what we're going to cover in this short hour today is basically, as I say, a smarter alerts, better reports, basically some cool new features that we've got in Cisco Secure Network Analytics 760, which is coming out on the 23rd of March. So if you're watching, sorry, a recording, hopefully you'll be out by then. At the moment, we're still February the 23rd. So we've got about a month before this officially goes what we call general availability. It's on limited availability at the moment. So if you've got SNA and you want to try these new features, you can reach out to our team and they can help you get advanced copies of this. So let's go through this. And I'm hoping to give it a little demo at the end just to make this a bit more of an interesting session. So let's cover what's in 760. Most of it, like I said, we're going to look at it improving is obviously on the reporting side, as we'll see the dashboards and things like that, which is kind of cool under the bringing data to life. But we've also did some improvement in what we call detections. We've introduced this concept of detection in packs a while back in previous versions in the 7.5, 7.5.2, 7.5.3, you would see that. What we've done in 760 is what we call operationalization. I can't even say that word this morning. We've made it easier for those detections to be visible within SNA with Secure Network Analytics. In previous versions, the only way you could see those detection packs, which are signature-based, was actually to export it using response management, response manager within SNA to your SIM. So, for example, send them into Splunk, and you would see those great new signatures as a OCF format in Splunk, and then you could do anything you want once they're in Splunk in an index. Create dashboards and things like that. So that's kind of cool. In this version, what we've done is you still have the option to export those alerts into your SIM in OCF format. That's still there. But we've actually added them into what we call the alerts page. So if you're familiar with SNA, we have a concept of alarms and alerts. The alerts page allows you to see those detections plus the standard what we call central or conversion analytics alerts as well that are in there. So I think the last count you'll see now in our alerts page is about 62 alerts. So we've got an additional 15 alerts that come as part of this release 760. So that's 15 additional signature kind of based, or I should say it's incremental. So if you had 7.5, it's actually 3 in addition to the 7.5.3 release. So I should add that. But if you've not installed these before, then you'll have 15 added directly onto your system. We also looked at optimization, or making it easier, I should say, how we get those alerts and observations into XDR for correlation and incident generation. So we're still looking at how we can obviously better enrich those investigations if you're working in the Cisco SDR environment and you want to look at your NDR, your network detection response kind of information. We're looking at how we can make the network alarms and alerts more interesting, or not more interesting, but more valuable for those kind of use cases where you want to do the correlation in the cloud. We mentioned bringing data to life, and this is what I'll show you mostly in today's session, is that the report building and the ability that we can do with that. So we're giving you the ability to schedule reports, pin them to the main dashboard, which is kind of cool. But there's also a lot of under the hood enhancements to do. We've got 21 kind of enhancements, and I'll show you a couple of those on the reporting. Obviously, we're not going to go through all 21, so we're slowly tweaking that. So the concept here is like if you're an older customer and been with Secure Analytics for a long while, you know we have this other desktop client that we use, and some of our customers like the desktop client because there was reporting capabilities. What we've done here in this version and in previous version is make sure we're taking some of that cool stuff out of the desktop client reporting engine and put it into the newer web user interface. So that's why we'll keep pushing on this ability to bring that data to life and basically improve on the dashboarding. On Simplify Operations here, we've actually added Cisco WebEx now as a response, which I know we're kind of late to the party compared to some Cisco products, but we're finally there. So what that means is if you raise an alarm or an alert, we can actually send that now via a Cisco WebEx space. So you can actually get that up and running, which is kind of cool. On the compliance side, we've done a lot more operational enhancements. As usual, we do every release, to be honest. A lot of those are aimed towards making it easier for our tech team to support customers and things like that. And we'll see a couple of those. We'll go through those kind of quickly in this presentation. We're also always looking at certification gaps with our federal customers. So you see that we've done some more tidying up on that. We've done some great enhancements on the data store for IP version 6 support, which I will mention. And obviously, we've now started looking at the M8 UCS appliances. The current generation is M6s. The previous is M5. So a lot of our customers will have M5s, M6s, and M8s will be released, I believe. Obviously, that's not anything to do with SNA, but it's obviously the UCS business unit. We're looking at probably early June if you're interested in that for M8 deliveries. But that's kind of up in air slightly because I'm sure you're aware there's a lot of issues around memory, what you call it, DDR5 memory for well the global world because of AI and GPUs and things like that. So just watch the space on that one. But M8 should be audible for your customers in June. But like I said, I'm a bit concerned about supply chain issues, which is not specific to Cisco, but specific to the industry at the moment because of the memory. One warning on here, M4 appliances, we are no longer supporting those in this version 760. So M5s, M6s, and the new M8, sorry, will be supported or are supported. And obviously VM, virtual appliances are, of course, always supported. So
Eric, since you mentioned that, can I just throw in the
Yeah,
only
sure, go ahead.
exception is on the flow sensor side. The flow sensor 4210 was an
Yes.
early deployment of the M5s and then was replaced by the 4240. So with 760, the flow sensor 4210 does become unsupported. So if you have those in your environment, look at that, and you obviously you'll have to make a plan before deciding to upgrade to 760.
Yep. Thanks for pointing out that. Yeah, that's
Sure.
absolutely true. Yeah, that is one difference there. Let's quickly look at the detections we said. So, like I said, if you're installing 760 from scratch from the beginning, you'll have what they call pack 0. If you're upgrading it from 750, you'll see this. You'll see what's new in the pack. And you'll see there's at least 3 new detections that they've added there, the Metasploit, the SSH over non-standard ports, in addition to the previous one. So you should see that count go up to 15 on those. And you can see there on the left, what we've actually done here, we're basically, what's the way to say? Well, yeah, I'm trying to find a clever words for this slide, but just saying we've added those additional extensions to those packs. So we're supporting the multi-telemetry source inputs. We're making it more flexible. You will see us adding more of those detections as we go along. And if you remember, if you watched previous sessions with us, the concept of this detection pack is that we can release these packages independent of the software release. So this pack isn't dependent on 760. It's actually dependent on when we have new detections to write in our new signature type detections. So this is just saying it's pack 0 because if you're installing 760 from scratch, you would see that. But obviously you got 753, you will have an updated pack. So I just want to make sure that highlight again that we've disconnected the release of the packs from the software releases, if that makes sense, or version releases. So kind of all I wanted to highlight on that one. Now, the main thing I want to kind of focus on this session was bringing that data to life, the dashboarding and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm going to show you a quick demo of how we do this, and hopefully the demo gods will be kind to me because it'll be a live demo. But in case it's not, this is what we're going to look at. What we've added in is scheduling the dashboards. So if some of you remember in SNA, we have the utility called Report Builder or module called Report Builder. And in that, you can run reports, of course, but you have the concept of creating your own dashboards. You can use a default Network Insights dashboard, which I show here. What we allow you to do now is actually when you have that dashboard, for example, we show here in Network Insights, I can actually select if I want that to be emailed now on a schedule daily, hourly, weekly. I can put the email recipient in there, and I can now select if I want a PDF version or a CVS version of that. And the beauty is that we can also see the scheduled history. Did that go out weekly? And you'll see in my demo system, you'll see there's an error because I scheduled my reports to go out, but it didn't actually get sent because I put in a fictitious email address. So it actually failed sending. So that's expected, but that's good because you need to know if that fails or not and why somebody's not getting that email. You can also, once you've created that schedule, you can obviously go and edit it, delete it if you wanted to do that, or even modify what you want as part of that report that you're emailing out based on your dashboard. Again, we're going to look at the Network Insights, which is the standardized dashboard, which you can customize, or you can create your own based on all the available reports that we have in SNA. Another cool thing I mentioned pinning. Now, pinning sounds like a strange word, but it is. It's like putting a pin in the drawing board. Once you configure your dashboard, you can actually select a pin, and that will show up on the landing page. So when you log into SNA, you normally will see the Security Insights dashboard page would load up. Now you'll see this a second tab. In our example, Network Insights will show up. Now you can actually use that as your kind of landing page. So you can give that functionality to customize what you want to view when you first log in to SNA. You can also unpin it here, and you can see the little icons where I'm showing. There's like a little thumbtack where you can pin it or unpin it depending on what you want on that. So again, kind of cool. We've also made a lot of improvements to the dashboards as well. We're adding the ability to add additional charts on that. So if you want a line, stacked, or pie chart, you just go and click add, and then you can modify that in that report or dashboard as you see. You can also manage the columns there you see on the tables, which we didn't have that ability, and the filters. Now, filter might sound a bit strange, but you can actually filter on the table information within that dashboard, which we kind of made a bit difficult in the previous versions to do that. So you can see some of the improvements we're doing there, adding additional charts, adding additional filters, and the ability to manage the columns within those dashboards. Also, on the dashboards, it's a bit hard to see on the slide here, I think, because in the top right there, you've got that little icon, which is like 2 arrows pointing the other way. We can basically say view more, we can expand that. We can, what you call it, collapse it. So when you expand on the dashboard, you'll get the table information below it. Or you can, like I said, collapse that view. So look out for those, what I call little Easter eggs now in the reporting that are hidden all over the screen, which may not be obvious until you get familiar with it. So look for that double arrow icon. Again, hopefully I'll show you that in the demo and it'll make more sense. On the reporting side, we mentioned the filtering on the dashboards, but we've also done it on the table views here, where we're allowing you to use what they call the fuzzy search logic, where you can search across the tables. Here it's just showing you breaking that filter called Zig, and it's looking for the information that's coming out there. So got the ability to do searching, which is kind of cool, which we didn't have before. Also, on the reports, you'll see this. You've got this way to build complex searches. So you've got the filter, so you can filter across the table, but you also say the search, sorry. And on the filter, you can build a more complex filter requirement. Again, probably a bit difficult to see here, but you can select multiple fields and for it to adjust that. And as you'll see in the bottom screen there, you get like a little breadcrumbs there where you can delete or remove those. So again, hopefully I'll show you that in the demo. I'll make more sense. On some of the operational side of things, I mentioned the new WebEx action here, and I'm just showing you response management, which we use to basically send the alarms and alerts out of SNA. Now there's a new option under actions. If you click add new actions, you'll see at the bottom there is a WebEx webhook. But you'll see there's an alarm alert. And if you remember in SNA, our alarms and alerts are different. So they're handled differently. That's why you get two options here. So the WebEx webhooks for alarms will be for the traditional behavioral alarms, as we call them. And the obviously alerts are for the detection pack alerts that we mentioned. And for the commercial central analytics alerts, as we call them, or analytics, I should call them alerts that you see that. So that's the now 62 kind of alerts would be sent if you selected the WebEx webhook option there. Here, it's simple to configure. Actually, the help page, if you want help in configuring the Cisco WebEx side of things, like I did when I did this first time, there's a great help page here. So if you click on help, it's not shown here. It will actually tell you how to do that bit, how to get that webhook HTTPS URL that I'm showing there. You have to obviously be logged into your WebEx environment, and you'll be able to get that URL to associate this SNA environment with your corporate WebEx type. You can also add different variables. In this example, I just add a couple of variables of the alert information I wanted to see. And obviously, you got a preview button at the bottom there, so you can see what it would look like. So you can basically customize what you want to send into WebEx. And then you've got the test button or test action. Very key. Do use that when you press test. You want to make sure that it works and it sends the message into WebEx. When you click that test, this is what you'll see here. This is me just testing on WebEx, and you can see that I created a WebEx space called SNA Alerts. Obviously, I'm already on there, and you'll see the message just pop up there. So that's just an example of the test message that I sent. So not actual alarm or alert. So of course, when you create a WebEx space like this, you can also then share it with the SOC team, the NOC team, or any of the incident responders that need to look at that. But again, remember, you'll have a different one for alerts and different for the traditional alarms. Talking about the compliance, remember I said we did a lot of work again, usually to help our support team and customers to configure stuff. What we've introduced is the ability to basically enable sysadmin passwords. Now, previously you had to do that via the command line and get TAC involved if you wanted to change that. What we've given you the ability is now that if you're a sysadmin, you can now grant web admins permission to reset that password. So the sysadmin is usually the command line kind of backdoor user that normally does that. The web admin is, as it says, if you're in the web GUI, that will be a different user there. So in the example what I'm showing you here is that when you do the first time setup or configuration, so if this is new install, you'll see the box on the right there. You will be asked if you will allow the web users to enable or disable, re-enable or change that password. If you say yes, you're going to authorize the web user, obviously the web admin user, to do that. You'll see under the user management where you'll see the screen on the left here where you're authorized to change it. And you'll see it gives you the option to fill in a new password, confirm that password, and that's great. So you don't need to contact tech support to change it if you've forgotten that sysadmin password. On the right-hand side, if on the first time setup you said no, then when you click on that sysadmin password option under user management, you'll still see what looks similar, but you'll notice the new password and confirm password boxes are grayed out. So you don't have the ability to do that. because obviously when we set this up the first time, we said, no, we're not going to allow web admin users to be able to change that. They need to be the sysadmin user or contact TAC basically to get help on that. Okay. So that helps for some people that forgot those passwords or need to reset them. Another thing we've done, which kind of makes sense to me when you look at this, is that when you're looking at the trust store within SNA, in previous versions, if you look at the issue to and issued by, we only ever use the organizational name. And guess what? The organizational name is always SNA. So it doesn't really help. What I mean is that if you look what we've changed to now, we're using the common name or CM name for the issue to and issued by. The thing, what was happening here is that when you install a new trust store certificate, you could change the friendly name. So you see here in some example, if you look on the right-hand slide there, you see friendly names ADFS. I could put in Bob, Bob's Burgers, if you're into that. Friendly name only means anything to me. So if the issue to and issue by name, it just says SNA, I have no idea who that certificate Bob's Burgers is for. Is it for my ICE deployment, my ICE certificate, my identity service engine? Is it for my flow collector? Is it for something else? For example, if I'm not disciplined in using a correct friendly name, I don't know what that certificate is. So if I need to renew it, delete it, or anything like that, then it's a bit of potluck which one I'm actually choosing to do that on. And I've actually had experience with that myself in the real world. So now by adding the common name on that, which is basically not user definable in that sense, you get the proper name there. So you can see in the issue to, for example, you got the NetFlow 760 device. So that's a flow collector, for example. You'll see under friendly name, there's a syslog, but the issue to is actually root certificate. So we see it's an SNA root certificate issued by engineering. So it just helps us to eliminate those inconsistencies that we have from friendly names and issue to or issued by names. And it definitely makes it easier for everybody all around to control those. Now, another thing we've added is, now you might think this is a bit strange, but we made it easier to view the system uptime and viewable from the command line. It was viewable, but you had to get hold of TAC and you would have to go in a couple of files to find that. So for those of you that are interested to know how long the system's been up, you can see that. You can see the patch levels as well, which is kind of cool there. So you get an uptime in day, time, and duration. Again, it's really helping on the support side if they want to know how long the system's been up, and speeds up the whole process, to be honest. But it's there, the about section is kind of cool as well that you can use as users. Certificate, we mentioned obviously issued names, but we've also made it easier here to basically troubleshoot certificate issues, which we've seen in the past. So we basically enhanced that local trust store management. We made it easier to view and delete certificates on a per appliance. So this is not from what we call the central manager. It's on per appliance in the trust store itself. So you've logged in as sysadmin, and you're actually on the CLI kind of interface here. You go to trust source certificates, and it will list all those certificates that we would see. In this example, we're pointing out test, and on test, I can then manually delete that test certificate off that appliance. But as it says, important sync note. If you delete that certificate locally on that appliance, but you don't remove it from central management, then manual deletion is required both in the central management trust store and of the appliance, if that makes sense. Because you're just deleting it locally here. So if I delete test certificate, central manager still thinks it needs test certificate to communicate to this appliance. So there will be a sync issue there. So discipline is to make sure you delete it on both the central manager, which lives on the SNA manager, and on the local appliance. And I
just
put it.
again, sorry, Eric, to interrupt, but to reiterate, it might be like some folks who haven't had this happen might go, well, why would I do it in the system config first? Sometimes the certificate confusion, because there's more than one or it's an incorrect one, is actually causing the system, the central manager, to be unable to communicate. So you can't do it. So you could, it's a problem solving option that was added here. And you can go into the system config, an administrator can get rid of that bad certificate here, And then you can go back into Central Manager, into the place that was ultimately controlled, and get rid of it
Yeah.
there. That's the reason you have to do both, is the Central Manager, the issue is causing Central Manager to be unable to do its part. And so that's why. So just in case anybody's never had it, it's a once you have this situation, you'll be really glad this feature got implemented.
Yeah. Thankfully, I've not had that situation yet, but no, I see what you're saying, and that's what I've highlighted in the little use case in green. Is exactly what Beth has
Exactly.
articulated very well, because Beth deals with a lot of customers, and I'm sure she's had to have a few customers that come across this. But it's like I said, if you've got conflicting certificates, so what you'll see, the common message would be config channel down from the central manager, because it can't talk to the appliance because the certificates don't match or fail. So how do you change the certificate? You can't, because central manager cannot allow you to log on to that appliance to change the certificate there. So you're kind of stuck, catch 22. So what this is allowing you to go in a backdoor way, go to appliance, remove that certificate, go back to the manager, remove it, and start again. And then you'll be able to talk. Like I said previously, you would have to call TAC, and they would have to use CLI and go in the back end and clean that all up. So like I said, config channel down usually means you cannot, or central manager cannot reach that remote appliance, like the flow collector or flow sensor or whatever you've added there, or the data store, for example. So good explanation there. Thanks, Beth. We mentioned the federal certifications again. Probably some of you on the call are not that particularly interested, but we've got this obviously for our federal and government time customers, constantly improving stuff there, common criteria, FIPS and DODIN, constantly changing stuff, HTTP2 compliance and things like that we have to keep up with. Now, what we've done on IP versioning support, which is part of actually the certification process, because obviously for common criteria and DODIN, we've had to obviously make sure everything's IP version 6 capable. We've had IP version 6 for a while, but on the data store, it's been interesting. As it says here, with the management interface is always supported IP version 4, IP version 6, or dual stack. But the private LAN or inter-data communications only supported IP version 4 or 6 in previous versions. So if you're not familiar with the data store, the central data store, it generally has two interfaces. One is the management interface, which the central manager talks to, and we can see it. And then it has a second interface that it uses to share the data amongst multiple data stores. So in the data store, you can deploy one data store node or multiple. So it's usually one or three data store nodes or even more. And when you have more than one, say you have three data store nodes, they use this inter-LAN or data node channel to basically share or the data across them for HA and other capabilities. So what we're saying in previous versions, that could only be IP version 4 address, but part of the certifications, we had to make that IP version 6 capable on that. So that's why it's saying here, if the data node's Ethernet 0, which is the management interface, is configured for dual stack, then you'll get a choice to configure that inter-data node connection to be either IP version 6 or IP version 4. But notice all data nodes must be the same mode. So if you had three data nodes, you can configure one for IP version 4 mode and one for IP version 6. Kind of makes sense. Otherwise, they won't be able to talk on that interconnection or inter VLAN node there. And here I'm just showing you when you do that first time setup, it will give you the option there on the data store, IP version 6 or 4. If you say 6, it'll put in the address for you. Now, I did put an extra note at the bottom here, and the extra note I'm saying here is that inter-data node, that's usually on Ethernet port 1, so not the management port. The mode cannot be changed once the data store has been initialized. So once you decide you want to go IP version 4 or IP version 6, if this is a new install, it's difficult to change that, basically. Is what we're saying. It's not going to allow you to change that. So once you've set it to IP version 6, like I said, it cannot be changed. Also, if you've got a previous version, so if you're upgrading for 753, for example, and you're using IP version 4, then you cannot change that into VLAN to IP version 6 without reinstalling the data store cluster. So that's why I put the warning there. So if you're an existing customer, you got data stores, you've got more than 3 data stores running, and you now want to make that into IP version 6, be careful of this warning that basically, if you do that, then you have to reinitialize the data store cluster, which means you're going to lose the data on there potentially. So just a warning to highlight that. So I want to make that obvious so people don't get surprised with that. But if it's a new install, not a problem, obviously. Okay. Also, another thing, part of the federal certification is obviously the certificate management. You'll see there's a new option under data store. So when you're looking at the data store, you'll see another tab, data store security, and you'll be able to see the certificate set up there. This allows some of our customers like to use custom certificates, so they're able to basically manage those certificates here. But this is not from central manager to the data. It's actually database certificates. So it's basically each of the databases have a certificate to make sure who's reaching that database is also authorized, if that makes sense. So it's not the central manager trying to manage the database, it's the databases sharing data between them if you have multiple nodes, for example. Also, we've got the ability for that revocation. So you can basically remove those certificates, for example, if you needed to do that. So like I said, got that additional tab when you go under the data store in central management, you'll see that now. Like I said, previously you could only generate new self-signed certificates, but now you can support revocation and custom certificates that you want to put in there. On the hardware side, just a quick support roadmap. We mentioned obviously 760, we support M5, M6, M8, no longer the M4s. You notice the next version 761 down the road. We will obviously support M5s, M6, and M8s as well. Notice if you're on 753 at the moment, obviously that is not supported for the newer, like I said, M8s, which we're hoping will be out or available to order from June time, depending on memory shortages and issues like that. And then here, the only note that's not on here is the one that Beth mentioned about the other flow center 4210 is not supported in 760 because of, well, what's a nice way to say that, Beth? Just because of the hardware issues.
Yeah, it just something this goes way back years when we were first trying to become compatible to the M5, and something about the M4s wouldn't work, so we had to do an early version of the S flow sensor on the M5, and by the time we were doing all the appliances, the hardware configuration changed. So they basically said the 4240 would become the primary flow sensor, and the 4210 would go away. It's just now we're now reaching that place. You know, they had to do an end of sale. We support it for 5 years. We've reached that place. It's just because it was released earlier than all the rest of the M5s. That's the only reason why. You know, it's kind of the odd man out.
Yeah.
But
So
the
it
cool
was
thing
there
is
to fill in the gap, I guess, is what you're saying.
it was filling in a gap, and there are customers that have them, but they're reaching the end of that life for that anyway. And so it's just if you haven't already looked for people who are coming up this year for renewal or hardware refresh, just being aware that that one might go away or will go away. So you know the good thing is it kind of operates independently. The rest, like you know, the flow collector, SMC, D nodes, those all really are interconnected and really should be the same. The good thing is you see the flow sensor 1300, 3300, 4300. There's several options. It's just that 4210 had to go early for whatever reason, and we had to pick technology that was available at the time, and it didn't match what's there now for all these M5s and M6s. So
Thanks, Beth.
there was an announcement. If anybody needs anything, just reach back out to us through whatever mechanism you can find us. Happy to work with you. But I have been talking to a few customers who have those 4210s, and they're just working on 753 will be supported for a long time. You can run on 753 for a while. It just means if you're looking at some of these features for 760, we have to deal with the flow sensor 4210 first and replacing that before you can take everything else to 760. So just thinking about that.
And that's a good point. I said Sim 503 will be out for a while, and it's probably time
Yeah.
to replace the hardware anyway. It's probably coming to the end of its life
Exactly.
cycle by then.
Yes.
So it's time to switch over to the M8 version. And I said
Right.
what I haven't put on the slides here, but the M8s have a drastic performance. Well, not drastic. I say depending on the node. But for example, the SMC, I've heard, I haven't got the exact figures at the moment, but I believe it's like a 50% performance boost because it's an M8. With the memory, more memory, better CPUs, GPUs, things like that. We're talking about the flow sensors as well. You'll see a slight uptick in the throughput that they can handle and the port configurations. So it's kind of cool stuff. Like I said, that detail's not on here, but we can obviously provide that detail if you need that. So the M8, it's not just a matter of shifting to just another box. You'll see a lot bigger improvements. Now, I believe like the flow collector, the FC4400 here, from what I hear at the moment, don't quote me, and Beth, do correct me if you've heard differently. I'm hearing at the moment, because I haven't seen the data spec sheets. Remember, this isn't out yet.
Right.
We've still got about a month.
Right.
But what I hear is that it's gone from 700,000 flows per second kind of performance up to about doubling that, almost 1.4 million flows. So you can see, moving to an M8, you get more horsepower, basically, is what I like to put on that. And the same with the data store node. You see the DN6400, you get slight performance increase, but you also get bigger storage. So depending on your retention, how long you want to retain data on the data store node, you've actually got bigger usable storage. For example, on the DN6300, the M6s, you had about 23 terabytes of storage you could basically count on to store all your flow data and stuff like that on. The M8, you're going to get 31 terabytes. So you've got more. So that means you can do more with less number of data nodes. If your use case is retention, if you want to store the data for longer, like 90 days, 180 days, whatever like that. So that's some good improvements on the hardware side. And like I said, on the flow sensors, you'll see improvement on what ports they support, speeds and things like that. So that's kind of cool.
Right. And that's what's in progress right now, is once we get the hardware working, is they do all sorts of extensive testing so that we know exactly what we can put in the documentation. That's what will come out, around the time of the hardware being available. The good thing is we're trying to do this webinar, early on, so what's coming, as opposed to waiting 2 or 3 months. So, this is letting you know what's down the road, so you can plan.
Exactly. And like I said, we'll update
And get
those
excited
data
about it.
sheets and post those, won't we? Which I have defined details. So that's why I didn't want to put any details here, because they're still testing the performance teams. So, but I've heard good stuff. Okay, cool. We've got time for a quick demo. Let me just switch screens over here. And let me just go to full screen there. Let me just make sure. Oops. Oh, wrong one. Sorry. Flipping between there. Let me go back to that one. So hopefully you can see that. If you just want to confirm that, guys. Yeah, I can see we got.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So remember, I said I was going to fit in a very quick demo just to show you that smarter detections and the reporting kind of functionality. So if none of you've not seen SNA before, I'll just quickly, let me just go back to the main page. So this is usually your landing page when you log into Secure Network Analytics. This is the Security Insights dashboard. And when it loads up, you'll see it have alarms and alerts and things like that. And what we're going to show you is how you can kind of customize this in a sense. So this is my standard default page. This is showing my traditional behavioral alarms, my alerts and things like that. And obviously I can drill into those great stuff. What we want to show is under report. So we go under report builder. And you'll see we've got reports we can run. We can show some of those in a minute. But what I wanted to focus on was obviously the dashboards and scheduling here. So if you've not seen dashboards before, if I click on dashboards, I've got one already I've got running here. But if I click on new dashboard, you get two options here. You get a default one, Network Insights, which is already pre-populated, which you can customize, and I'll show you that one in a minute. Or you can get a blank dashboard here, and I can start to add reports into that dashboard. So say if I want alarms, I want to say, okay, yep, select that, add report. you'll see it starts out. So I can make a custom dashboard kind of report. Obviously, this one's probably not much useful, but what I've done here, I'm using the standard network insights one just to save time. And it pre-populates that dashboard for me with host group information, flow traffic, network consumer response. Again, I can actually delete these, remove these. I can actually move them around on the page and things like that. What we were talking about on the slides was the ability to schedule these. So I can edit, delete, well, I can delete the whole dashboard if I want to do. But if I look at edit the schedule, it's actually going to tell me what it's going to do as part of schedule. So it's going to show that report, all these reports, details here. I can do a daily schedule, weekly, monthly time. And you notice poor old Bob Fleming. I hope there isn't a Bob Fleming at hotmail.com because I keep spamming him. I've got here the PDFs, and that's it. I just create that schedule. I can view the scheduling here on the history, and that's why you see poor old Bob is failing here at the moment because Bob doesn't exist, and obviously the email can't be sent out here. But at least I've got a record of that history of the schedule of the dashboards. I also got one for reports here as well, so I can schedule reports as well. Again, I can go back into that and modify the schedule here, and you see it's failed. So at least you've got confidence or a way to see if that message was successful or not, and then you can find out exactly why. And the major reason why is that email doesn't exist, and I've not hooked it up to my email server, to be honest. I haven't configured that. So the scheduling is not going to work on that very well. Now, the other thing on the dashboard, when we're looking at the dashboard here, I've got other actions here. Basically export this as well. But if you notice when I come here on the dashboards menu, which lists all my dashboards, and that's that network insights one here, I've got that little icon. Remember the pin, the pinning the dashboard. From here, I can still look at the schedule as well, but now I can pin. If I could just click pin, that's it. So if I go back to my landing page, which is the Secure Network Insights dashboard, what we will see is we will see the default dashboard, and now the network insights will show up as a second tab. And it's slow at the moment because I'm on a VPN connection, so that's why it's taking a while to load that. Notice now we've got network insights. So if I click on network insights, that's my dashboard. So now I've got it here. So I can customize basically what I want on that. The other thing that's kind of cool is that, which I didn't show you, if I go back to report builder, is on that dashboard. So when I'm in the dashboards, remember I mentioned on one of the kind of enhancements, improvements, was this little icon here. You can basically expand that. So you get a closer zoomed in view of the actual bar graph, and you also get the table. And remember in the table, we said we can do a search, that global search. So obviously there's probably nothing interesting here. What have we got? From AWS. So it showed me all the AWS stuff on that search. But also we've got the filter. Remember, so the filter, we can start to build out more complex kind of filtering or searching here. So I can say application, does it contain or equals to, in this particular example, it's probably a bad example because there's no application here. Let's say traffic with bandwidth is equal to, what was that, 0. I think we got 0 bytes in there, haven't we? So let me just type that in. And it's showing me everything with AWS and 0 bytes traffic, for example. So that's showing some of those, the ability to do the filtering, the more complicated filtering. And you see the results there. We can reset that and the ability to do that searching. Okay, so obviously I can clear that. But you notice it's still showing me that there. So I need to reset all and I get my table back. Again, that little icon here. So once I've zoomed into that, I just click on the double arrows, and I'm back to the dashboard view. So I can do that with any of these panels. I can actually expand those, look at the table view that builds that table. I can do the searching, or I can do the filtering on those tables. And again, if I don't like it, I can actually delete it. And click the X, it's gone. I can actually move these boxes around. It's kind of flexible that way. And like I said, completely edit this page if I wanted to do that. Okay. Yeah, that's about all I wanted to show you today. Hopefully that was helpful to show you some of that dashboard reporting. Um, the only other thing, oh yeah, let me just show you before we sign off. We mentioned those detection packs, those alerts. So if I go to monitor alerts, remember I said here, this is my obviously system here. I've got some alerts firing here at the moment. Um, what we've done in 753, those detection pack alerts would not show up what I call on the alerts page here. They do now show up here in 760. That's what we said about making it easy to see I cannot say authorization today. Anyway, I'm stuck on that word. They would show up here to actually see those uh, detection packs. This is what it looks like. So you notice here we've got 15 detection packs loaded. In 760, we can see what's being loaded here. There's actually 3 new detections that were added. So like I said, if you're upgrading, you will probably see your number of detections in 753 or with that pack would be 12. And once you upgrade to 760 and install, you need to install the pack. The pack comes as like a patch file. You install that, you get the option of the 15. And if you scroll down to the detection pack page, you'll see it'll mention the flow collectors. So it will install that new detection pack or download it to your flow collectors. And the flow collectors are looking for these signatures. But this page shows you what the alerts are in that detection pack, shows you the MITRE tactics, techniques, what telemetry information it needs to fire or work off from. So this is just listing what you've loaded. And if you had a previous version, which I don't on this system, I can actually roll back. So if I have 753 on here and I didn't like any of these 3 new ones because maybe they're noisy, I could roll back to a previous pack and just ignore those for the time being. But the other functionality here was the ability to see it when I want to look in monitor and look under alerts. Like I said, at the moment, I haven't got any, well, yeah, SSH, that's a new one. That's coming from the detection pack there. So that one's just showing up. So it's one of the new ones there. Like in previous versions, I'd have to log into Splunk or my SIM. And then in the SIM, I would have to look for the new OCF format version of this message that would be there. The same information would be sent. So we're sending it through what we call response management here, which is this guy here. When you configure this guy, this is the guys that you configure to send based on rules. So you configure the action and then the rule. You'll see here sending SNA alerts to Splunk. I've got SNA alarms to Splunk. And also what you'll see under the actions now, we've got that new WebEx action that I mentioned here. So under actions, you've got the WebEx webhook. And you'll see in my simple lab here, if we just edit, I've got that set up here. And just an example, we can preview that message. You can see what that message would look like. Not very helpful. So I would normally change that. But again, I can test that action and that will send that to that WebEx space for me and tell me if it was successful or not. So some kind of cool things there. So that's the major things I wanted to highlight.
And just to add to that, Eric,
session.
as well as
Yep.
you've been mentioning Splunk or SIM, if anybody on here or listening to the recording later happens to also have XDR, you may be already sending some alarms and alerts to XDR. This operationalizing, that word that Eric's having trouble with today,
Yes.
bringing these detections into that path means that if you already have alerts going to a SIM or already have alerts going to XDR and you upgrade to 760, these new detections will go along with that. So they'll start to be uploaded into XDR. You'll see them as XDR continues its development. It'll start to associate those with other activities. It'll become a part of that analysis for you. So again, it goes to XDR, goes to any SIM, goes to Splunk, goes to your syslog, and of course now to a WebEx room, a WebEx space as well. So a lot of things are opening up with all of these things kind of come into completion. So.
Yep. You're the best. And this is where we set up. So exactly, this is what we mean by the settings. So the security findings is exactly what Beth said. All those alerts that we're showing under here, which include those new detection packs and what I call the more traditional kind of alerts. When we enable that on the integration with XDR, they will go up into XDR. for correlation, incident generation, and things like that. If I look at the alerts here, you'll see this is the alerts listed here. So you will see the detection pack alerts listed here as well, in conjunction what I call the out of the box converged analytics or analytics alerts as well. And again, you can filter by the source here of the data, and you can see some of those on there. You'll notice at the moment some of these are grayed out. They won't let us enable us to disable them because I'm running what I call release code, but that will be changed in future versions. That if you don't like, for example, the Mega one, you will be able to do some minimum tuning, from what I understand. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Reduce the priority or turn it
Yeah.
off a particular one. Yep.
Yeah,
That's coming soon too.
yeah. And on here, I've got to reload this because it's only showing me the data detection packs ones. So on my lab system, you'll notice it's only saying 15. On my other lab system, it's 62 because this one, like I said, I've only got the detection packs ones running, not the out of the box, should we say, analytics ones. If we got the analytics ones, these boxes wouldn't be gray. You can modify those, is where we're the same. Great. Okay. We'll wrap up there. Rico, was there any burning questions or?
Yeah, great presentation, Eric. I'm looking at the Slido queue right now for questions, and I don't see any outstanding inquiries. So I think we
I
can
don't see
go ahead
anything.
and yeah,
Yep.
I think we can wrap up the presentation for today.
Mhm.
But before we do, Eric, do you have any closing comments for our audience today?
Um, only to do kind of so I investigate these new features is the best way to put it. So we talk about these features a lot, me and Beth, and we get excited about this, and it's a bit hard to know if customers are getting excited about it. Well, especially for me, I know Beth talks to customers more than me. That's why I've got her on the call helping me. But for me as a technical marketing engineer, it'd be nice feedback from customers, from the audience. You know, is this what they want? What do they want? You know, for me, if you can tell me this is going in the right direction or you need something else, yeah, definitely reach out to the TME
Exactly.
team, the marketing, because then I can push that through to product management and engineering, and you know, we get Beth's teams involved. So we constantly want to improve this. So any feedback on what we've seen today, if there's, you know, can we have this feature? Can we have this widget? I'm not promising we'll get it, but you know,
But we'd love to
any
hear from you.
improvement,
Yep.
yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So just the takeaway is, yeah, we do these webinars, you know, quite frequently. Well, at least every time we have a release, which is roughly about every 6 months, we have an update, and we're constantly building on top of that. So it'd be nice to see if somebody goes back a couple of versions of these, say, oh yeah, I can see the difference. I can see you're actually moving in the right direction. You know, maybe today's session, some of you might not be interested about the dashboards as a reporting particularly. You might be more interested in the alarms alerts, or maybe the certification. Maybe that'll be, you know, everyone has a little thing that kind of they
Right.
switch on and
Tips the
listen to,
scale.
and the rest tips the scale for them. So you know, we can't kind of make everyone happy in one session, but it'd be good to know that we're doing the right thing overall in the solution. You know, we're going in the right direction. I think we are, compared to where we started. But yeah, any feedback from the audience on that, you know, even if it's not a question, would be appreciated. Any feature kind of things that you see that you would like us to try to get into the solution would be appreciated from them.
Perfect. Thank you. Beth, any closing comments from you? Anything you'd like to add?
I'm good. Just thank you all for being here, and anybody listening later, we appreciate your participation.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So, so with that, I'd like to give a very big thank you to our presenter, Eric, for speaking about this topic with our audience today. I hope that everyone found great value in the information and resources that were shared here today. I would also like to extend a very big thank you to our panelists, Beth Nugent and Greta Reed Young, for lending us a hand throughout the event. We really appreciate it. And for our attendees, if you do have any additional questions or would like to continue the conversation about today's topic, we do encourage you to participate in our online post-event discussion. The link to that post is available on your Slido resources, so please feel free to check it out at your convenience. And another reminder that we have launched a short survey in Slido, and we would really appreciate it, and we would be grateful if you can just lend us a minute of your time to complete it and let us know how you like today's presentation. We always look forward to receiving your valuable feedback. And for those that are interested in revisiting this session, the playback of the live stream is available immediately, but the recording will be available on the Cisco Learning Network on demand within about 5 business days after today. So we'll definitely have it ready for you to check out. Thanks again to our presenter, to our panelists, and to all of our attendees for joining us here live. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time on the Cisco Learning Network. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.